Hello, it's week 24, season 7 of the Andy Griffith Show. This week's episode title is Helen the Authoress. Andy and Helen are getting ready for an evening of TV watching at her place. But first, Helen wants to walk to the nail docks to nail her manuscript of the Book About Children that she wrote. It's called Amusing Tales of Tiny Tots. She's gonna nail it to a publisher in Richmond that she found in the phone book. And Andy is real supportive of the idea. And later she gets a special delivery letter from that publisher. They've accepted it and they've mailed her an advance of $1,000. And she takes it over to show Andy and Opie and Aunt Bee. And Andy takes her up to Richmond the next day to meet the publisher. He and his staff are real friendly to Helen, but they ignore Andy. And they say she might get to write a whole series of books. But they want her to use the pen name of Helena Alexia Dubois. And then they show her the artwork of the book's cover. And they're not interested in Andy's opinion on either topic. Then when they get back to Mayberry, Floyd and Goober tell Andy in the barbershop that he won't ever have to worry about money once he marries Helen because she'll be making so much money. And they say she'll be meeting so many interesting folks too. And Andy had just come in for a haircut, but they keep talking about Helen, so he gets mad and leaves. And then on the street, Howard does the same thing. He says he's sure that Andy won't change, even though his future wife will be more successful than he is. And Andy don't appreciate that, and he walks away. And later that night, he has a celebration dinner with Helen over at her place. And she tells him she's going to be tied up with some rewrites of a book later tonight. And he says he's the only man around who's going with the lady who's rich and famous. But he's sure everything will stay the same between them. But later that night he's wearing an apron, serving her coffee, and while she's working at a typewriter. And then Goober brings over some tourists who said they wanted to see something interesting in Mayberry to meet the author and celebrity Helen. And while they're fawning over Helen, Andy just stands over to the side and says, "Oh, I'm with her." And the next morning, Andy's in a dyed nude at the breakfast table. Aunt Bee keeps going on about Andy's marrying Helen, a famous authoress. And he gets mad and leaves to go to work. Then at work, Helen comes in, and she's all excited about the book. She says she's going to have to do some more rewrites with the publisher every night this week. So she's going to have to break her date with Andy tonight for a second time. And they fight about that, and he says he'll just get another date. And she gets mad and leaves. And Andy calls Nathus Neff down at the drugstore. And Howard overhears this phone call while he's at the drugstore, and he runs and tells Floyd that Nathus and Andy had a date tonight, and that Andy and Helen had broken up. And they also say Nathus has got a reputation of being pretty forward. So on the date, Mavis is all over Andy in the patrol car while they're parked at Myers Lake. And Andy gets nervous and convinces her to go down to the diner. Meanwhile, Helen is already at the diner with Mr. Bryant, her publisher. And then Andy walks in with Nathus, and after he introduces Nathus to Mr. Bryant, and everyone else says hi to each other, they sit down in the booth right behind Helen and Mr. Bryant. And Nathus is all over Andy in the diner too, saying how Andy's laugh lines drive her crazy. And Helen hears that, and she gets mad and walks out. Later that night, Andy goes to Helen's house to apologize. He says Helen should be proud of her writing talent and should use it, just like he's proud of his talent at being a sheriff. And she accepts his apology, and then she wants him to take her to Myers Lake. And then Aunt Bee mails off a collection of her favorite recipes, hoping to get them published. And Opie starts writing a book about what it's like to be the son of a sheriff. We'll see you next week for episode 25.